I love the community and fellowship that's grown around this channel. Not only have all of you made some truly amazing things possible that we'd never be able to do on our own, but whenever there's a news story that you think we may have missed or which requires some extra attention from the channel, you always reach out and let us know. And thus, it was approximately sometime Friday when my inbox and my DMs and every single social media platform I'm connected to, and yes, even my personal text messages, started to light up with notifications from folks who wanted to tell me that the Wall Street Journal had just published what was, in no uncertain terms, a hit piece about electrified vehicles entitled
I rented an electric car for a 4-day road trip. I spent more time charging it than I did sleeping.
Now, when the notifications started pouring in, I was actually hunched over my computer finishing the weekly news roundup show, which, in case you don't know, is scripted, filmed, edited, and produced by myself in a flourish of productivity that leaves me crying for my bed and the sweet, sweet release of sleep. Anyway, it wasn't until 2 days later that I actually went back to my Apple newsfeed to read said story. And boy, was it a doozy. So today, I'm going to look at the article, discuss the many faux pas made by the intrepid adventurers on their 2,000-mile trip, and detail why it's probably not a hatchet job, but rather a sign of what we in the plug-in vehicle world need to be prepared for if electric vehicles are to be adopted on a massive scale, which they need to be. Besides, the custom art that went along with this article showed what looked like a Kia EV6, a reasonably accurate rendition of a CCS charge cable, and 2 very miserable-looking women, along with a giant chicken. And you know me and chickens. But first, if you'd like us to continue to play chicken with some of the most diabolical fun on the internet, don't forget to scratch the subscribe button and peck at that bell. And don't forget to crow about our content on social media. It all helps. But if you'd like us to be able to continue to dig up the juiciest worms for your enjoyment, stick around until the end and I'll tell you which feed we love the best. Okay. Enough of those clucking jokes, and on to the character assassinations of long-distance EV trips. The too long didn't read, or, to be honest, in this case, the you might not have read it because it's behind the Wall Street Journal's paywall, is the WSJ writer Rachel Wolfe, accompanied by her friend Mac, deciding to rent a Kia EV6 to travel 2,000 miles from New Orleans to Chicago and back. With seemingly no preparation or knowledge of route planning and only one smartphone app, they bravely embark on an odyssey of comedic tragedy in which everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And, while they apparently pass by the world's largest chicken statue, I'll leave it to Rachel, as voiced by Kate, to explain.
We pull into New Orleans 30 minutes before Mac's shift starts, exhausted and grumpy.
Which then leads the writer to state, quote,
The following week, I fill up my Jetta at a local Shell station. Gas is up to $4.08 a gallon. I inhale deeply. Fumes never smelled so sweet.
With a tinfoil hat on, this is most obviously an inside job to try and dismiss the electric vehicle as being anything other than some fad, probably paid for by big dark oil. But on reading it again, I realised something far worse. This attempt at journalism, while misinformed twaddle at best and terrible hatchet job at worst, actually portrays how a large part of the population think about EVs today. What's more, I'd wager that while most people watching this video are more than capable of planning a decent road trip in an EV, your average non-EV savvy car buyer, aka most of the population, probably aren't. And with gasoline prices continuing to rise to the kind of meteoric new heights that will make even a monster truck aficionado ask if there's a better alternative to fossil fuels, we've got to get this or face millions of people just giving up rather than following through. I mean, look, there are plenty of technologically superior things we've seen over the years that have been relegated to the history books not because they sucked, but because people didn't understand them. You only have to go over to watch Alec's excellent offerings at Technology Connections to see a fair few of them covered in great and wonderful detail. Talking of which, and yes, this is a segue of appropriate nature, the lovely Alec, accompanied by the equally lovely Robert from Aging Wheels, recently made a similar length trip from just outside Chicago to Central Florida in a Hyundai Ioniq 5, a car which, in case you didn't know, is built on the same platform that underpins the Kia EV6. They're basically separated at birth and wear different clothes. The cars, not Alec or Robert, because as far as I know, they are definitely not related. In the case of the great Aging Wheels Technology Connections crossover of 2022, Robert and Alec made the trip with no major hiccups and returned with nary a problem. In fact, they spent just 2 hours and 20 minutes charging on their 1,400-mile trip. And yes, you should totally go and watch and subscribe to both of these awesome content creators. They're in my subscribe list, and they really should be in yours too. Don't worry, I'll wait while you do that. Back? Great. So I've delayed long enough. While Alec and Robert spent just 2 hours and 20 minutes charging, our hapless heroines from the Wall Street Journal claim they spent 18 hours charging on a just over 2,000-mile trip. Their first error was having no clue about charging infrastructure. Quoth Rachel.
I plotted a meticulous route, splitting our days into 4 chunks of roughly 7.5 hours each. We need to charge once or twice each day and plug in near our hotel overnight. The PlugShare app, a user-generated map of public chargers, showed thousands of charging options between New Orleans and Chicago, but most were classified as level 2, requiring around 8 hours for a full charge.
Which is where we find our first problem. See, I just plugged that exact route into a better route planner, one of my favourite go-to apps for route planning long-distance EV trips, because it's completely customizable to your vehicle and takes into account things like weather and terrain. And according to a better route planner, the trip from New Orleans to Chicago should be possible in just under 19 hours in ideal situations with, wait for it, 1 hour and 38 minutes spent charging. Obviously, if you're driving an EV6. Now, any hardened EV owner will know that predictions vary a little from real-world experiences, and charging stops inevitably take a little longer once you've faffed about a bit. But stating that there are no rapid charging stations en route? That part of this story is grade A bovine byproduct. Why didn't PlugShare show appropriate charging stations? I have a theory. It's an app which, while it used to be community operated, is now owned by EVgo, a charging provider who is a rival of Electrify America. And while PlugShare used to default to showing multiple networks every time I've opened it up recently, it's mysteriously not shown Electrify America charging stations. The very charging stations that ultimately would have made this trip possible in about 1/2 the time, because EA supports the 800-volt charging technology the Kia EV6, Hyundai Ioniq 5, Porsche Taycan, and a few others can actually support. But if you don't know that fact, well, you might assume it was going to be impossible. But then I should also point out here that when presented with such a poor route planning representation, perhaps our heroines should have given up and looked for an alternative. But no, they pushed on, which, now I come to think of it, does make me think that this might have been a hit piece. No. I must not listen to Shouty Bob and his EVs are rubbish mantra. After stating that New Orleans has 0 rapid chargers, which it doesn't, but there are a couple within spitting distance of the musical Mecca, the article explains how the first charging station en route was chosen as a Harley-Davidson dealership in Louisiana, 40 minutes into the trip. But then things get really bad.
This quick charge should take 5 minutes based on our calculations, so why does the dashboard tell us it will take an hour? Maybe it's just warming up, I say to Mac. Maybe it's broken, she says. Over Egg McMuffins at McDonald's, we check Google. Chargers slow down when the battery is 80% full, the State of Charge YouTube channel tells us.
If you are an EV driver, I am guessing you, like I was when I read it, are screaming at the screen right now, especially after they name-check the lovely Tom Malogny's channel, which again, you should totally subscribe to, because Tom is a wonderful person and he rocks. Anyway, because as and I'm going to assume you know, the problem wasn't that these ladies had a broken charger, but that they were stopped at the slowest of the fast chargers you can possibly get. See, fast chargers aren't all fast. Anything technically above 20 to 24 kilowatts is considered fast charging, and the EV industry doesn't really make much of a differentiation over what fast really is. The Kia EV6 is capable of charging at up to 350 kilowatts. 350 is a much bigger number than 24. The Harley-Davidson dealer and then the next charging stop our adventurers stopped at were the lowest power rapid chargers in existence. The difference between stopping at one of those versus the 350 kilowatt charging stations is several hours. And yet, the reason why Harley-Davidson dealerships have such underpowered rapid charging infrastructure is because the Livewire bike isn't capable of charging at any higher power speed. So putting in a massive charging station that costs a lot more doesn't make any sense. To her credit, Rachel notes later on in her article that fast doesn't actually always mean fast, but let's be honest. How many of you knew that fact before watching this channel or other channels like it, and or actually buying an EV? And how many dealerships know the same thing? Honestly, very few, I would wager. In fact, this is one of the reasons why we are all fans at the channel of Chargeway, a charging system that breaks down the charging experience into coloured connectors and numbers, with the higher the number meaning a faster charging experience. It does away with technical terms because, well, most people don't know or care about them, and it turns people off. And how many people genuinely know what a kilowatt is, or even a kilowatt hour? But people do understand that one number is bigger than the other, and using an app like Chargeway can actually filter out charging stations that don't support their car or are considered too slow for the person's tastes. And just as a disclaimer here, this is not an ad, but I am friends with the founder of Chargeway, Matt Teskey, and the channel has helped Chargeway with third-party paid production work in the past. So, yes, I am a little biased about the system. As the story progresses, we learn that Rachel and her companion do finally pull into an Electrify America charging station and, oh look, the rate of charge is exactly what it should be for an EGMP-based car like the EV6. Like it takes them 15-20 minutes and they are done. And that would have been their experience for the whole trip had they known that fact. We, in the EV world, suck at making advice and knowledge easy to get hold of. We suck at communicating outside of our little tiny bubble. And in a world where people have got used to just looking for the bright lights of a gas station at the next exit and know categorically that that light will be near a source of regular or premium, navigating the EV charging world is, to put it bluntly, a cluster duck. You not only have to know which apps and route planners to trust, but also know which type of charging station will best suit your needs. You need to understand that it might be better to take a more indirect route with a quicker, more reliable charging infrastructure than following the most direct one. And dealerships? They need to understand charging too. Oh, and yeah, route planning software in cars needs to get smarter and think less like gas cars. One of our biggest criticisms of the EV6 was its failure to have decent route planning with charging integration. All route planning software for EVs need to understand that you, as a meatbag, would rather spend another 50 minutes on the freeway to reach a decent rapid charger than rely on whatever it tells you is the best route or the nearest, possibly, often, level 2 charger. Unless I'm presented with evidence to confirm otherwise, I cannot accuse the Wall Street Journal piece of being just a hit piece, but I can most definitely accuse it of being misinformed and terribly executed. In fact, as a journalist myself, I would have been mortified if I had written or published a piece so terrible. But here's the big problem. If a journalist at the Wall Street Journal can be so badly misinformed, so too can Shouty Bob and anyone else who doesn't either have a clue about how to go about planning or indeed is just looking for a convenient excuse not to trade in their Hemi just yet. That's it for today. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to leave your thoughts below or in our free to join Discord chat room. There are links in the description. And if you really liked the video, why not leave us a super thanks? It's easy to do and everything you send does go towards helping us make great content. If you want a more generalised news roundup in the world of cleaner, greener, safer and smarter vehicles, check out our news roundup show every weekend. And don't forget that we produce videos every single day on this network for you to enjoy, ranging from deep dives and features through to tutorials, unboxings and reviews. If you haven't already, make sure you've subscribed to this channel and our other channel, Transport Evolved Take 2, and give that bell a gentle ding to make sure you're told when our next video goes live. Oh, and please do consider filling out our annual viewer survey. It does take about 20 minutes, but your answers really will help us better represent our audience to sponsors and partners of the channel, as well as make sure that we make content that you are going to enjoy watching. Thanks on behalf of the entire crew go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month supporters, Chris Maxwell, Predo Mure Pinheiro, Patrick Boyarski, Bennett Elder, Brian Newton, Dave Kitchen, Michael Goad, Ricky Leon, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahota, Brophy Wolf, Tazla in the Gong, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Ray Jean Fellows, Aurori Litwin, Jim Burness, Chris Ascenta, Chris and Michael Johnson, Peter Dillinger and Denny Hyde, and our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, Anonymous Freak, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Joe Bresney, Reed R, JP Fagerback, Russ, Will Graylian, Matthew Drobnak, John Lyons, Andrew Glenn, Paul Conway, Laura Reynolds, Ellery Hensley, and Ian. If you'd like to be part of that amazing list, you can join Patreon at the link below, hit the join button to support us on YouTube, or show us your support through Ko-fi or by buying something from our cool swag store. The Pride t-shirts for 2022 are now in stock. And if you're unable to support us financially, just know that watching the video and sharing it with your friends really does make a difference to how our channel performs. And keep your eyes peeled for our brand new, super awesome trailer for our BMW i4 eDrive 40 review, which drops this Friday. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving. If you'd like us to continue to play chicken with some of the most diabolical FUD on the internet, don't forget to scratch the subscribe button and peck that bell. And...
Sorry, I thought that was really cute.
In the case of the Great Aging Wheels Technology Connections crossover of 2022, Robert and Alec made the trip with no major hiccups other than the teleprompter refusing to frickin' work.
Oh, okay.
You're just gonna have to manually scroll that, I think.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Get set up. Where are we?
In the case. Down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to get footage of me standing behind the camera looking confused? Because you were like, most people don't know that not all quick charging is quick charging, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, it isn't. It isn't. Like,
That's good, but it's true.